Okay, in this video, we are going to create a loop that adds up a certain number of values and calculates the average. Okay, so let's play that game sort of with, let's say, two humans. Now, I haven't got two humans here, so I'm going to pretend to be two different people. So I'm going to say to somebody, I'm going to say, how many numbers shall we input? And that person responds, I don't know, let's say 15. Okay. Then I'm going to say to them, okay, what's number one? They give me an answer, whatever that is. And then I say, what's number two? What's number three? What's number four? What's number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I ask them what the value of all those numbers are that they're interested in. And as I go along, what I need to do is I need to total up the sum of all these values as I go along. So, for example, if the first three numbers are 3, 9, and 7, I ask for the 3, the total is 3. Then I ask for the 9, then the total becomes the 3 that I had before, plus the 9 makes 12. And then the third number was 7, so I take the 12 that I've already got as the total, and I add up my 7 to make that 19. 12 plus 7 being 19. So this idea of having a loop for a certain number of times is what we did in one of the previous videos, which is a definite loop. And remember how we did a definite loop? First of all, we had, in fact, we can open that video now. Which one was that? I think that was called, I called that video 2. Yeah, here we go. This was, oh no, this was an indefinite loop. So let's try the other one. Must be video 3. Let's try that video 3. No, video 1 must be video 1. Yeah, here we go. So it says, where shall I count to, starting with the largest value. So this is basically the equivalent of us asking, how many values do you want? So let's change that from being where shall I count to being how many values. So let's say, in calculating an average, how many different values do you want? And that's going to be, rather than call it largest value, should we say how many? How many? A variable called how many. Which means this largest value that we had before should be how many. So let's change that to how many. Okay. So what this does, it says how many values do you want? Let's say we want 10. And then we're going to put the value out and keep going around this loop until we've captured all these things, all these values. But as we do so, we want to total up the values one at a time. Every time somebody's inputted a value, then we're going to total it up. Okay, and to do that, we're going to use a totalizing variable. So we can have an assignment where before we start adding them up, before the loop, we're going to set this total to 0 because we haven't added any values up by the time we get to here. Then it asks how many do we want, and instead of writing out the counter, what we want to do here, we want to input the value that they want. So we're going to input, and we're going to say enter value number, and then that's going to be, remember, if you're in, that's going to be counter. So we're going to say plus counter. We're going to store that into some value called new number, say new number. So let's see what's going to do. It's going to set counter to 1, the total to 0, and then it says, in calculating an average, how many different values do you want? Let's say we said 3, so it's going to come here, and it's going to say enter value number 1, because counter is 1, and then it's going to go around, because counter is 1, so it's not going to be 3. Goes around here, counter is now 2, it says enter value number 2, and then enter value number 3, and then drop out. But what do we want to do? If we haven't got to the end, in other words, we get through to this point here, at that point, not only do we want to increase the counter, we want to add up the values that we've got so far. So we want to add to our totalizing variable, which we call total. We want that to be whatever the total is so far, plus this number that we've just entered, which is called new number. Oops, new number. There we go. So let's see what's happened here. So let's step through this bit by bit. So start, set counter to 1, set the total to 0, and then it says in calculating the average, how many different values do you want? So let's say 3. Comes to the loop. It says enter value number 1. So we're going to type that in. Let's say we're going to have 15. Let's try and remember these numbers. 15 is the first one. Is counter equal to how many? Well, counter is 1. How many is 3? No, it's not. So it's going to add up this number that we've just typed in to the count, to the total. So total is 0 at the moment, but when we execute this box, it's going to be 0 plus the new number, which we just typed in, which was 15. So the total will be 15. There it is. There's total is 15. And then counter is going to be increased by 1. So counter is now going to go from 1 to 2. Here, are you ready? Watch this box change when I step. Here it is. And back to the top again. And now it's asking us for a second number. Enter value number 2. So let's have 20 this time. So counter, which is now 2, that's not equal to 3 yet. So it's going to go around and it's going to add up the total. So total now, which was 15, is going to be 15 plus this new number, which is 20. So it's going to be 35 now, 20 plus 15. And there we go, there's our total 15. Increase the counter. It's going to get our next value, which is 3. So let's add 40 here. 40. Is counter equal to how many? No, counter is only, counter is 3, sorry, yes. And how many is also 3. So it ends. Got a bit of a problem here. We don't want that to happen. We want to keep adding up all of these numbers here. Okay, so what we could do, we could repeat this here to add the total to the new number that we just entered, or we could make sure that this goes around one more time in the loop. So let's just stop that for now. And instead of saying equal to, we want to say greater than. Because we want to make sure for this last value that we add this total up. Now the alternative to that would be to have moved this before the loop. Okay, so instead of having that here, we could have had that before we exit. Because we've just entered a number, we might as well add the total to it. In fact, that's better. So let's change that back to equals. And let's move this totalizing inside that loop. So I'm going to put that there now. Okay, so it's going to add the total before I decide to enter or not, to exit or not. Okay, so let's go again. Let's start from the beginning. Let's step. Counter is set to 1. There it is. Let's do 3 numbers again. So we're going to ask for 3 numbers. Here we go. Enter the first number. So let's do a 10. Now our total is going to be 10. Go round. Get our second number. So here we did 15, if you remember. So now our total is going to be the 10 plus the 15, which is 25. And counter is counter plus 1. And now we're going to enter our third number now. So let's add our 40. Total should go to 25 plus 40, which is going to be 45. Let's check that. So 20 plus, what did I do there? Did I type it? 40, sorry. Typed in 40. So 40 plus 25, which is now 65. Now the counter is 3, and how many is 3? So this is true, and it will end. Okay, which is basically correct, but I'm not doing anything with my total now. So I want to be able to use my total that I've added up, and I want to divide it by how many numbers that I had, because to calculate an average, I add up all the numbers, which is the total, and divide it by how many numbers there were. So let's have an assignment in here. After we finish getting all these numbers, we're going to add an assignment that assigns the average, the mean average, if you want to call it that, to the total number, total of all the numbers added together, then divided by how many numbers we've actually got. How many numbers we've actually got. Okay, so let's try and run that now. So here we go. So we're going to have three numbers again. Enter the first number, 10. Enter the second number, 15. Our total is 25 now. Enter the third number, 40. Total 65. We're going to divide that by 3 to get an average. And the average is 21 2/3. So it's 65 divided by 3, which I'm sure you would agree is 21.66666 recurring. So it's rounded it up a little bit. But I'm not really outputting the total or the average. Let's say I want to output the average. I'll put an output sign here, and I say the average of all your numbers is, add to it this value average that we've just calculated. So this is just string concatenation again. We're going to glue together the average of your numbers is, and then the value of the average. Okay, so let's step through that and see what we get. Step through. In calculate average, how many different values do we want? 3. Let's make it a bit easier to do this time. Let's make the 3 numbers simpler. 10. The second number, 11. And 12. 10, 11, 12. The average is 11, isn't it? So let's type the third number, 12. The average should be 11 now, because our total is 33, and we've got our number of values 3. 33 divided by 3 is going to be 11. So off we go. Average is 11. There we go. And it's going to output the average over here. There's a little message to say the average of all your numbers is 11. Okay, so this is a way of calculating the average of the numbers, however many numbers that we want.